Now I will talk about animal tissue. So when we breathe, we can actually feel the movement of our chest. The contraction and relaxation of these cells result in movement. So in the case of animal tissue, blood is a type of connective tissue and muscles form the muscular tissue. Blood flows and carries various substances from one part of the body to the other. And the blood and muscle, these are all examples of tissues which are found in human body. Now these animal tissues are of four types. First one is the epithelial tissue, next is connective tissue, and the third one is the muscular tissue, and the fourth one is the nervous tissue. Now we are going to discuss each of these different type of animal tissue. Let's start with the first one, that is the epithelial tissue. Cells of epithelium are set very close to each other and the tissue rests on a non-cellular basement membrane. And they are the protective tissues of the human body. They cover many organs and cavities which are present inside the body. And where it is found, these epithelial tissues are found in the lining of blood vessels, then lining of mouth, skin and kidney tubules. Now what are the function of this epithelial tissue? So the main function is to act as a barrier and they separate different organs and systems from each other. There is no space between their cells and the cells are permeable and the tissue remains separated from the tissues present beneath them due to a thin membrane over time. Now these epithelial tissues are further of different types. So the first one is the simple squamous epithelium. The simple squamous epitheliums are the cells which are arranged end to end like tiles on a floor. And they are extremely thin and flat and they form a delicate lining. And it forms the delicate lining of the cavities like of the mouth, then esophagus, nose and the alveoli, and they also form the lining of blood vessels and the covering of tongue and skin. So this is the figure that you can see here. It is the simple squamous epithelium. They are very flattened in structure. Now the next one is stratified squamous epithelium. So the epithelial cells are arranged in many layers or we call that as stratum and it is there to prevent wear and tear. Since they are arranged in layers, so this was about the stratified squamous epithelium. So you can look at this figure, the stratified squamous epithelium. So why they are called as the stratified? Because of many layers which are present in them. Now the next is cuboidal epithelium. So this cuboidal epithelium, they are found in kidney tubules, then thyroid vesicles and in salivary and sweat glands. They are cube-like cells that fit closely and the cells look like squares in sections. It involves absorption, excretion and secretion and it also provides mechanical support. So here is the figure of this cuboidal epithelium.
Now we will see how can we separate a mixture of two miscible liquids. Remember, we have said that two immiscible liquids like oil and water, how we have separated them using the separating funnel. Now, two miscible liquids means the two liquids which are mixed with each other. It does not form any different layers, but it is a single layer mixture. Let us do one activity. So, see the setup, how we have put the water condenser on the distillation flask and we have clamped all of them. Now in the distillation flask we put the mixture of acetone and water and we close the mouth of the flask. Then we heat the flask. We have seen that the acetone vaporizes and is being collected through the water condenser. See, the acetone has been collected into the beaker, but the water remains in the distillation flask. So, the method we have seen in this activity is called distillation. It is used to separate components of a mixture of two miscible liquids. that boil without decomposition and have sufficient difference in their boiling points. So, what is the principle behind this technique? See, the mixture of acetone and water, they have two different boiling points. Boiling point of water is much higher than that of the acetone. So, when we heat the mixture, first the acetone gets vaporized and then we collect through the water outlet. So, we get the acetone into another beaker. The water remains back into the distillation flask. So, the water, why it did not evaporate is that the water has not reached its boiling point till the time acetone has reached, as acetone has lower boiling point than that of water. This is the principle where we can separate two or more miscible liquids having different boiling points. And if we take two mixture of two miscible liquids which have nearly same boiling point, then we cannot use this technique to separate them from each other. To separate a mixture of two or more miscible liquids for which the difference in the boiling points is less than that of 25 Kelvin, fractional distillation process is used.
In this part, we are going to discuss about graphical representation of motion. We are going to see displacement time graph, velocity time graph. So, graph, when I say, what does you picture? If I give you any point and I ask you where is this point, how you are going to say? You are going to put one y axis, you are going to put one x axis, and then you are going to specify the position of the object with the help of a graph. So, a graph is very important to know the position of any object. And in this part, if there is a change in position, we can know many things like displacement, you can know the distance, you can find out velocity, you can find out speed, and then you can find out acceleration. So, graphically we can represent all this type of motion. So, let us start and see one by one. Distance time graph of an object moving with uniform speed. Now, if on the x axis I have time in minute and in the y axis I have distance in kilometer, the time is 10 minutes, then I have taken another interval as 20 minute, 30, 40, distance is 10, 20, 30, 40, which is in kilometer. Now, suppose a body is moving with uniform speed, as you can see, if it covers 10 kilometer in 10 minutes, then it must have to cover another 10 kilometer in another 10 minutes. If you have seen the graph nicely, the dotted points will show its equal distance in equal interval of time. So, it is a linear graph where you can see that the change in displacement, equal change in distance has been taken in equal interval of time. So, this is the displacement time graph of an object moving with uniform speed. Now, distance time graph for a car moving with different speed. As you can see here, here the graph is not linear. At different distance, different time interval, right or not? It covers unequal distance in unequal interval of time. So, if on the x axis if you are taking time and on the y axis if you are taking distance in kilometer, the variation of graph will be somewhat like that. But make sure one thing is very much clear out here, that the distance is increasing and with the time is also increasing. Please keep that in mind and you see that the graph is shown on the screen as well. Now, we can do another graph or graphical representation of equation of motion known as velocity time graph. Velocity time graph for uniform motion of a car. On the x axis I have taken time, which is in hour, and on the y axis I have taken velocity, which is in kilometer per hour. As you can see, time intervals are 1, 2 hour, 3 hour, 4 hour, then 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 is the velocity kilometer per hour. If the body is moving with uniform motion, the velocity must be constant. Yes or no, my dear? Yeah. Suppose the body is moving with 40 kilometer per hour. So, the graph will be a constant graph. The line AB will be parallel to the time axis, if you can see on the graph, and it has started from some time maybe T1 and then it reaches to T2. So, a rectangle will be formed in the graph and the area of that rectangle will be your distance, which is equal to length into breadth, AC into CD. Easily you can find out the distance if you have a situation like this where the velocity is constant. Out here, make sure that the velocity is only 40 km per hour. It is not necessary that you have to take 40 km per hour only, you can take 30 km per hour also.